Hi, my name is Jared Omchanko, and I'd like to start off by sharing an image of a famous painting you may recognize. Simple, right? Now that painting may look like any old depiction of a soup can, but behind it is the complex life story of an influential artist named Andy Warhol. In my speech titled The Wondrous Life of Warhol, I'd like to share a brief overview of Andy Warhol's life story by going over his early, middle, and late chapters of his life. To start off, on August 6, 1928, Andy Warhol was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and his legal name was actually Andrew Warhola. His father, Andre Warhola, was a construction worker, and his mother, Julia Warhola, was an embroiderer. Now, both of his parents were actually Slovakian immigrants, and they continued to practice their culture throughout Andy's childhood. Now, at a very young age, Warhol was struck with chorea, or otherwise known as St. Vitus dance. This was a nervous system disease that impaired his movement. This caused him to be very bedridden, but due to this condition, new passions and interests sprung forward. Andy's mom actually introduced Warhol to the world of art when he was bedridden. Also, during this time, Warhol took an interest to comic books and movies, which would later fuel his professional career. And as we could see with his education, his artistic interest grew as he took free art classes from the Carnegie Museum of Art during elementary school. Also, he enrolled and graduated in Carnegie Mellon University with a bachelor's degree in fine arts. Now, after a brief overview of his early life, let's explore how he further increased his artistic interest throughout his middle years. After college, Andy Warhol moved to New York City to become a commercial artist. Commercial art basically encompasses all types of art that's used for advertisement and selling. It was evident that Andy Warhol experienced early success as many clients reached out to him for his art. Another important part about this time is when Andy Warhol began dropping the A in his last name and became known from Andrew Warhola to Andy Warhol. Pop art is also another important part of his middle years as he trailblazed the movement with his Campbell soup painting, as I showed in the beginning of the speech. This painting put Andy Warhol and pop art in national limelight. Pop art wasn't the only thing that Andy Warhol did during his middle years, as he also drew portraits with extravagant colors, and they were of famous people like Marilyn Monroe. Another important aspect of his middle years was the opening of his factory studio, which became a cultural hotspot in New York City, and the wealthy and elite would go there to even throw parties. In short, Andy Warhol experienced a bountiful and successful artist career during his middle years, but he decided to expand forward and look at new forms of media during his later years of life. He declared a mini retirement from pop art, which meant he didn't really leave it, but he decided to focus on other things. One of these things is filmmaking. He produced over 60 films, and they weren't just one type of film. He would do silent films, black and white films, and shorts. He was also involved in TV and had his own programs, such as Andy Warhol's TV. Now, unfortunately, during his later years of life, he experienced problems with his gallbladder. He had to undergo surgery, and when it seemed like he was doing or recovering just fine, he actually experienced complications that led to cardiac arrest at the age of 58, leading to his death. Now, after briefly reviewing the later chapters of his life leading up to his death, it's important to step back and look at his full life story from a different point, or from an overview. In his early life, we could see the sparks of artistic creativity as shown with his early bedriddenness and his interest in art. He furthered his artistic passion during his middle years, as shown with pop art and his portraits. Now, he expanded his artistic influence to other forms of media in his later years. So overall, it shows that Andy Warhol was an important figure in media and art itself. Even though he died to, at a young age of 58, he was able to touch people's hearts through a simple painting like a Campbell soup can. Thank you.